The opposition between non-being and being constitutes one of the most fundamental and deeply rooted dualities in human thought. This duality makes its presence felt not only in philosophical systems, but also in everyday thinking, language, and even emotional responses. When making sense of the world, humans intuitively draw a distinction between what is and what is not. However, although this distinction appears clear and sharp at first glance, a deeper examination reveals a highly complex, layered, and asymmetrical relationship. While being can be directly experienced, perceived, and discussed, non-being exists at the outer boundary of this experience and is grasped only indirectly, through the absence of being. This clearly shows that the relationship between the two concepts is not symmetrical. In everyday thought, being is expressed simply as that which exists, and non-being as that which does not. Yet such definitions fall short on a philosophical level. Even the expression "that which does not exist" refers to the possibility that something could exist. In this sense, non-being is conceived in a way that is linguistically dependent on being. Therefore, rather than standing as an equal and independent opposite, non-being emerges as a boundary condition tied to being. The human mind cannot grasp non-being directly. It can only conceive it by comparison with being, as a domain from which what exists is receded. In this context, it is not possible to develop a consistent understanding of non-being without understanding being, nor of being without understanding non-being. In the philosophical tradition, this opposition has often been resolved in favor of being. The main reason for this is that non-being lacks explanatory power. While being can be analyzed through causes, processes, relations, and transformations, non-being does not allow for such explanations. Explanation requires establishing connections between things, whereas non-being offers no content through which such connections can be formed. For this reason, many systems of thought have preferred to take being as the fundamental principle rather than centering non-being. In these systems, non-being is not the starting point of explanation, but rather an extreme limit at its boundary. Nevertheless, the opposition between non-being and being does not stagnate thought. On the contrary, it generates a dynamic tension that keeps thinking alive. The continuity, change, and meaning of being become more apparent only when considered alongside the possibility of non-being. The existence of something gains meaning through the idea that it could cease to exist. Continuity is recognized only where interruption is possible. Permanence gains value only in the face of transience. From this perspective, non-being functions as a background that enhances the value of being, yet it is not an independent principle that produces meaning on its own. This relationship also manifests itself in the human perception of time. Things that once existed in the past but no longer do are considered in relation to non-being. However, what is at stake here is not absolute non-being, but rather something that is no longer present. This indicates that non-being is often associated with the past, loss, and change. The human mind cannot comprehend absolute non-being. It can only grasp states in which being has withdrawn. This once again shows that non-being is always approached in dependence on being. From a scientific perspective, a similar structure can be observed. Science studies existing systems, measurable processes, and observable phenomena. Non-being is generally defined through the limits of measurement. The absence of a particle, energy, or effect usually means that it cannot be detected within a given framework. This is not a claim of absolute non-being, but a methodological definition. In other words, science treats non-being not as an independent reality, but as a condition in which the measurable effects of being are absent. This approach shows that, in scientific terms, non-being is not an absolute opposite, but a practical limiting concept. In spiritual and ethical traditions, the opposition between being and non-being is often linked to human responsibility and the search for meaning. Being is seen as a given possibility, while non-being serves as a reminder that this possibility can be lost. In this sense, non-being is not a concept that renders humans passive. Rather, it calls them to awareness. The idea that what one has is temporary can encourage a more careful, conscious, and balanced way of living. Here, non-being is not an equal counterpart to being, but a conceptual tool that reveals its value. Similarly, in aesthetic and artistic domains, this opposition plays a defining role. Silence is meaningful in music because there is sound. Emptiness is valuable in visual art because it contrasts with fullness. These examples show that non-being does not provide direct content, but rather sharpens the perception of what exists by framing it. Thus, even in creative processes, non-being functions not as an independent subject, but as a structuring boundary. In conclusion, the opposition between non-being and being is not a conflict between two equal concepts. It exhibits not a symmetrical, but a hierarchical structure. Being stands at the center of thought, knowledge, and experience, while non-being occupies a boundary-defining role at its periphery. Non-being is not a force that annihilates being, but a contrasting ground that allows us to see more clearly what being is. In this sense, non-being is not a destructive concept, but an explanatory limit. The meaning of being becomes more distinct precisely through this boundary.